In modern times, we largely think of salt as a flavorful table condiment, but in a day before refrigeration, salt was essential to the preservation of foods. One obvious natural resource of salt is the ocean, and settlers up and down the United States coast readily took advantage of this. Salt works cropped up in coastal towns to meet the needs of colonists wanting to preserve their catches and kills. The Delaware colonists were no exception to this, and discussions over the possibility of salt production emerged as early as 1642 in communications between Queen Christina of the Netherlands and John Prince, governor of New Sweden. In her statement, Queen Christina reasons that if New Sweden was situated in a climate with Portugal, it was to be supposed that salt works might be established on the seacoast. But in case the salt could not be perfectly evaporated by the sun, the salt water might thereby so far be improved that it might afterwards be perfectly condensed by means of fire, without great labor and expense. Though no salt was produced, as Prince worried the winters were too cold, and his access point to water was a freshwater river in northern Delaware rather than the salty bay. Though the idea was shelved for some time, it reemerged in 1776, after the Council of the State of Delaware formed a committee for the purpose of planning to supply salt to the citizens of the burgeoning state. As such, a loan of 1,000 pounds without interest was supplied to Colonel John Jones of Sussex County, with the condition of erecting a salt works at Indian River and reselling 10,000 bushels of salt to the state of Delaware. Though these hopes, too, would be dashed when by 1779 Jones had produced no salt. That is not, however, to say the Delaware coast was void of salt works. In a 1778 letter from Delaware Governor Caesar Rodney to Thomas McKean, Rodney requested additional aid from the Continental military for the protection of a number of salt works along the Delaware coast, which he specifically claimed were not only necessary but convenient for support of the army. Though there are no records of large-scale salt production in Delaware, a survey conducted by Daniel Elbing in 1799 states sea salt, Glauber salt, and magnesia. Of these, there is a manufactory at Lewes. The salt-making industry became even more necessary and profitable following the War of 1812's trade embargo with England. In his book, History of Delaware, 1609 to 1888, John Thomas Scharf said, "Along the seashore on the salt lands, shallow wells have been dug, and the water gathering into them has been evaporated in rude salt works put up in that locality. In the War of 1812, salt was made on the flats beyond Cape Henlopen Lighthouse, and was sold at $3 per bushel." This further speaks to the profitability of salt making. Though $3 is pocket change today, this would have been a bit less than $60 in 1812. The evidence of salt works on the Capes in this time period is reinforced in Henry Charles Carey's 1822 publication, The History, Geography, and Statistics of America and the West Indies, in which he states, "Lewistown is on Lewes Creek, 3 miles from its entrance into the Delaware Bay, and a short distance west of Cape Henlopen. Extensive salt works have lately been erected at this place." Though many pieces of the absolute salt working history in the lower Delaware region have been lost to time, most agree salt was produced in what is now Gordon's Pond and the Henlopen Acres Yacht Basin, a short distance from the previous site of the Cape Henlopen Lighthouse. Though it would seem obvious to collect seawater for salt-making purposes, this is likely not the case, as Atlantic Ocean seawater has a salinity level of 3.3 to 3.7 parts per thousand, while the ideal salinity levels would fall around 8 to 9 parts per thousand. This high salinity level was achieved by digging wells and potholes in low-lying and tidal areas. In a time before salinity meters, salt makers would evaluate the salinity levels of water by floating fresh eggs and potatoes on the surface and observing their behavior. The saltier and more dense the water, the higher the object would float. The high salinity salt water would then be placed in a large metal pan or kettle, crafted from iron. It would then be evaporated down to a thick slurry, either by means of boiling or solar power. The reduced and thickened mixture of salt and water would then be moved to pots and pans to finish out the drying process. It would frequently be stirred to avoid clumping. Though salt making was never as influential on the Lewis-Rehoboth region as it was in coastal areas of the more northern Atlantic states, it presents itself sporadically in documents through Delaware's entire post-contact existence. Outside of industry, many lower Delaware farming families, such as the Dodd family of Rehoboth, took on their own salt making in the early winter months to preserve their foods for the fruitless season ahead, a tradition carried on as late as the 1910s. Though salt making is but a small detail in the long-standing history of Delaware, it is an interesting and often overlooked or unknown piece of our past. Museum Minutes is brought to you by the Zwaanendael Museum in Lewes, Delaware, and by the Delaware Division of Historical and Cultural Affairs.